Hi, everybody. Welcome to UX Sante. My name is Juliet, and I'm super excited to have you again here. Um, the title today is Finding a Job That Aligns with Your Values. And for me, this is such a big topic, something that I talk to everybody that I meet on ADPLS, and something that I really have close to my heart because I feel like this is one of the things that is going to get you closer to where you want it to be. So let's bring our guest instead of me just talking about it. Um, hey Maggie, how are you? Nice to have you here. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, hello everybody. Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you for listening, for watching us.
Yeah.
We've been waiting for this day for a while. Like I connected with a lot of people during the year, and we keep booking everybody. Such in a like in November, and it's here. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I was super excited because I'm also a listener of the show, so I can cross this off my list.
nice, perfect. Okay, why don't we start telling people about you, who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Maggie. I'm a UX designer based in Seattle currently, born and raised in Puerto Rico. I have a background in industrial design, and then that turned into human computer interaction. Been doing UX for about a little bit over 6 years now. Various industries. I've been in fintech and agroscience and e-commerce, you name it. And then on the side, I like to mentor other BIPOCs and just kind of help teach UX design. I'm currently a co-teacher in QT BIPOC design, which is a volunteer-based organization. So yeah.
I don't know why I didn't know that you were Puerto Rican. It's like, what are we doing this in Spanish?
I
So
can do Spanglish, you know.
totally good. So I'm just writing you down in my list for my. I don't know if you know, I have one in Spanish. So they
Yes,
have
I
we
do.
can do like Spanglish. But yeah. Okay. Before we go to the juicy part of today, why don't we tell people something unique and fun about you?
So here's a story that not a lot of people know about me, but I'm exposing myself now.
Thank you.
A long, long time ago, even before I knew I wanted to get into product design, it should have been super obvious. I did a lot of cosplay and props. Like I made my own do-it-yourselves, and then during the beginning of YouTube's, I combined that passion with filming and photography, and I started making my own like how-to videos, and it actually
Oh,
reached 10K views at some point.
wow.
You won't find it. I took it down, but it was one of those moments where I was like, wow, I never thought that I would get like 10K views for like such a thing that I was like doing for fun and out of passion. So, yeah, that's one of a fun story.
Well, I think when are you bringing this back?
I don't know. I have so many hobbies,
Yeah.
but it's in my heart. You know, I still love cosplay and anime, and I'm a huge nerd. So who knows?
I love it. I love it. That's so much fun. It's so much work. I think
Oh,
when you see people in CrossFit, like what, like, is so much cool. And I think most of the people they do it themselves, so it's even more like amazing how
yes,
much work. I
very,
love.
very admirable. The craft is amazing. There's a lot of amazing people out there.
Yes. Okay. And I think this is a great step to move into the next question. Is like, what did you do before coming into UX?
Yeah. So for me, I kind of wanted to be an architect. That's kind of what I wanted to do, even from like when I was like in high school. And I failed miserably doing that. So it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do, and what the core of what I wanted to do was combine my passion for creativity through design, as well as trying to like make things better. I grew up with my grandma, and she always struggled with a lot of things around the house. And I was like the go-to person for a lot of things. So eventually I found something that just kind of married those two things, very deeply ingrained things of who I am and what I like. And one thing kind of led to another. I got tired of physical products, right, which was industrial design. And I was like, I know digital is gonna lead me to maybe something that's more futuristic. I know there's a lot of tech happening, and I kind of want to lean in more on that. And I kind of, on the way, discovered what UX design was and decided to skill up essentially, and got an internship, and the rest is history.
Okay, that's nice. What do you think that you were looking for when you were in that middle? Like, what was missing?
For me, it really came down to a few things. Who I wanted to work with. So when I was doing industrial design, um, dealing with manufacturing and all that never really sounded great. I had no interest in starting a small business, which a lot of my uh, people who graduated with me pursued, and that was fantastic. And I don't know, there was something missing there. And then I started looking into what I was passionate about, my hobbies, and during that time when I was doing like physical design, I was also doing a digital media minor, and I took video game classes, and I took all these like very digitally focused classes. And between that, I was like, okay, tech is so obvious. I should have seen it. Not that UX is only tech, but I wanted to lean in on that, and I started collaborating with developers and um, product owner managers, and even on a student level. And I kind of like that, and I was like, let's do it, let's lean in on that, let's take classes, let's get a degree that'll help me open doors. And that also allowed me to network with people in that space, which led me to an internship and so forth.
I feel like there are so all these. I don't want to call it magical things, but I think there are all these things that show up in your life. Like when you were saying in school, we have all these classes that is like open up my eyes to see that interests me and that I wanted to do that. Yes, so I'm
Hmm.
always like super curious about those instances in moments in life. Even though I feel like you've been crabbing, weaving
Hmm.
before this moment in life, for that instance to kind of realize, oh, this is cool and this is connected with a lot of things that I like. So I love those kind of moments.
Yeah.
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 um I think something that a lot of people, and I will say, struggle with
Mm-hmm.
is landing the job. Yes, I feel like people start thinking, oh, I need to find a job, and that instance before even landing the job, like finding, like trying to get to the what you really like is hard. But I think people never goes to that point. It's like, let's find a job. Yeah. But then thinking, should I find a job that I like? I don't know if that's kind of like a lot of people feelings. Yeah, it's like I feel like it's just, let's find a job and see what happened. um but how do you find that job that is going to really align with you?
Hmm. That's a really interesting and deep question, because I've definitely through those motions. I like to say that although my career may be a little straightforward in paper, it wasn't. When I was near the end of my industrial degree design, and I was already pushing 5 years, right? So it's not like I did like 4 years. No, I struggled to get internships. I struggled to feel that love. I compare myself a lot with my colleagues, because the field itself was very open. You could be whatever you wanted to be. And I was really struggling to find that, right? Because I have so many interests. I was like, how am I supposed to do that in this space? I didn't get a job. I delayed getting a job, actually. I was like, no. And amongst those thoughts, I found UX, but I decided to delay getting into the corporate world by getting another degree, um, because I needed that time. Whether that was by myself or taking classes, I knew I needed a little bit of that structure, because I do a lot of self learning, but it's nice to have, that other side of like there's some accountability factor to it. but I delayed a lot of that intentionally because I was scared. I didn't know. I had a lot of questions. But what I didn't realize at that time is that I was allowing myself to go through another journey of discovering, like, what do I even want? And I was trying to find that balance of, do I really just want a job, or do I want a job that will allow me to, what are the things that I'm really looking for, and what kind of led to me getting a job in the UX field. And I got a few offers for internships. Was what sounds interesting to me, do I like the people I'm working with, and what'll lead me to like a full-time job. That was my number one priority, right? As an intern, I think that's you have a few things going on. You either are younger enough, or you have allowed yourself time to be like, I don't need to get a full-time job anytime soon. I can like do a lot of hopping. I didn't feel like that. I was like, listen, I need, after this internship, I need a job. Like, I need a grown-up job. So who's gonna allow me to do that? And I leaned in, put everything on like a pros and cons list, and went with the company that I knew had some sort of path for me at the time. But that, of course, changes over time as I've kind of gone from job to job.
And I really like that part is like, yeah, like this list that you have at the beginning, of course, how much you grow and know more about you, these lists change, and it's important to acknowledge that that's okay. And sometimes I don't know, I maybe the money wasn't important at one point, but then at one point, yes, I want more money, or I want to grow, or I want work-life balance, and these values change around all the time. But I wanted to go back a little bit to when you were comparing yourself to the people around you. Yes, because
Mhm.
it's so hard. Like yesterday, I was talking. I don't know. I have known her since she was like a baby, and she finished high school last September,
Nice.
and then she went for 6 months to France to practice her French. And then we were talking about, okay, what do you want to do, blah blah blah, and she was like, oh, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, I'm going to go into school for, I don't know, to get into being a lawyer at one point. But she's like, oh, I don't know if I really like. I think I just want to do it because it sounds like promising. Yes. And I'm like, oh, hey, have you like talk to lawyers and see if this is what you like? And then she's like, no, I mean, it sounds good on paper. And my classmates are having are enjoying the time. They
Hmm.
want to get a job right away. Anyway, you going back to that point when you are in the outside and looking, people is doing their lives, they're finding jobs. um how do you really put out yourself and saying, first of all, that's not my life and that's not me? And how, because it's hard. I mean, we all do it all the time. It's like, why did this person got the job that I wanted, even
Hmm.
though I feel like I have more I don't know, whatever qualities, or they should have hired me. So how do you stay out of the line, so other people's lives?
Yeah, no, it's really hard. It's really hard. I think after reflecting on how do I get out of myself, out of that hole, because it happens. It's natural to fall into that like trap a lot throughout your entire career, your entire life. So I've gotten better at getting myself out of that hole. But in retrospect, it really is about, do you have a support system? And that can come in various forms. It can be your colleagues, can be people from your family, your friends, therapy, whatever you need to do to have a moment of, I need to take a step back, but recognizing and having that self awareness that that is happening is also really important, because again, you don't know that you're feeling burnt out or that you're kind of losing yourself in a spiral sometimes. And it's okay to have somebody to be like, hey, let's take a step back. So I think over time it's good to become self aware of what triggers you too. Um, and what are some of those recurring thoughts, because that is the judging voice in your head. It's good to name it too, because then you can detach yourself. I don't have a name for mine. I've heard people call them like Judge Judy or like stuff like that, which is hilarious. I just, I have like a lot of thoughts. They all have like nicknames. I just don't keep them top of head. But having that self-awareness of detaching those thoughts of like, ooh, that's a nasty thought, that's not me, really helps. But that's built up over time. It takes practice. It's not like a tomorrow I'll feel better, because it's not how that happens.
Sorry, I love that. Yeah, it's like, oh, it just changed like that. I mean, again, I'm 40 and I just changed careers not long ago. And I think for me, it took me a lot of time to realize that a lot of my thoughts, like you were saying, they were not my thoughts. And it's like, oh my goodness, why are you so sucky with yourself? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Yes. So I think to be aware of what is happening is such a hard skill to grow, like a habit to grow into it. Yeah, because it's like an instant, like you have to do it so much
Yep.
to make it happen. And at the same time, you're so busy, like you were saying, okay, I'm trying to find a job. Um, like, I don't know what to do. Do I want this? No one wants to hire me. So there's so many thoughts involved for you to just sit down and think about your thoughts is hard. Um, can we go back to the questions that you were doing at the beginning? You were saying like what kind of company, the people that were going to work with you, like you wanted to uh, get hired, like a longer job.
Mhm.
Um, how did you come up with those questions?
um Again, help from like people who have already been doing so this is where like talking to people who are not necessarily struggling the same at the same time you are, but maybe somebody who's already gone through it, maybe even several times, can help you kind of think through like how do you just talk to them, right? Like how did you make that decision? Because you'll get different perspectives, right? Some people, again, foot in the door. Some people, it really comes down if they have multiple offers, sometimes it comes down to money, because a lot of us are trying to build up wealth we don't have. Some of us are trying to get out of a place too, right? If an internship allows us to be somewhere new, that can be exciting. It can come down to the type of work too. Like if it's a new type of tech, like virtual reality, that can be exciting too. Big company names, right? So I think the more stories you gather, the more different perspectives you'll get, and that will kind of help you, or you hope that it'll help you kind of have trigger those questions, and you're just like, what do I want to focus on right now? Because sometimes I'm the type of person that used to get really overwhelmed. So everything is like, yes, that I'm gonna be honest, like I still am that person. What I just do is, instead of like yes and then let it be overwhelming, I just make a priority. Like all of these things are important, but let me be real. Like where I am right now in my life, what is something truly that needs to happen? This needs to be true in order for me to feel good, right? It's kind of like meeting that pyramids of needs. um where it's like, can that wait till next opportunity? I think that's something that is blissful thinking. There's always a next opportunity, and you can kind of offload that negative thinking of like, it needs to happen right now, and into, does it really need to happen right now, or does this better align with you, and kind of narrow it down that way. So it's about chunking it out so it becomes less overwhelming.
Yeah, and I feel at the end of the day, we cannot do all these 10 things.
Nope.
Never is going to happen. So I think when you start prioritizing and realizing, okay, maybe I can take one, four, and five. And I think this brings us back to what we do in design, and we do it tons. And I don't know, just let's think about that first kind of case study that we work on, and we wanted to do everything. Yes, it's like I want to do the whole the whole cake with like layers and layers and decorate it everywhere. And at the end, we just have to go to basics.
Mhm.
And I think for me, that teach me a lot about life, like how we can really just go for that MVP. What is that little MVP that we can take over and we can see if it works?
Yes.
Um, okay, we have been I don't know, in this experience a little bit longer, and we can kind of prioritize, and it's like find these, like what you're saying, like, oh, let's talk with two people, let's go and read a little more, let's connect. But there's a lot of people that maybe don't have those opportunities, or don't have those people that is like, what do you think? Yes.
Mhm.
How do I find those answers and questions in me? Like, what kind of things can I do to bring me there?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things you can do. There's definitely, depending on where you are, who you're connected with, you can go about it differently, right? You can volunteer in spaces and causes you care for, and that's how you gather stories and self-reflecting questions. It can be personal and career related, right? It's like, oh, I really care about this space, let me, I don't know, try to get myself involved or talk to more people there. I think the most important one, personally, that has helped me and I still struggle with, is finding community and developing my network. It's not easy, but it does help. Even if your network doesn't necessarily help you get a job, the fact that you get to understand that everybody has their own kind of struggles, and again, getting those stories really are good for, I should be asking those questions to myself, right? Like picking up those pieces of like, oh, well, that helped them realize that. Like, let me ask those questions to myself. But getting involved, trying new things. I'm a big advocate of just trying new things, within reason. I'm a reasonable person, because I like to measure the pros and cons. And again, I'm at that point where it's like, what value will this bring me? If it's for fun, I post that. It's like, no, it's purely for fun. And I'm okay with that. And I think that's the biggest thing, is like, whatever decision you make, you need to be okay with it, because whatever you're saying yes to, you're saying no to something else. But you need to understand that, right? Like, you can't be like, but this is like, you can't do it all. We can't, we can't do everything, but you need to be okay ultimately with what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to. And no doesn't mean no forever, right? And I think we sometimes, those negative thoughts can get there. It can just be a not right now. But yeah, I getting involved, talking to people, and finding the answers to the questions that you're craving, however that may be.
I really like that part of like volunteer for causes that are really close to your heart. Because I feel like, again, I'm talking to, in my case, that I changed careers, and it's like, oh, I'm leaving my previous careers because I didn't like how everything was about selling and just selling no matter the cost, like cutting hours to people, even though we are super busy and we need help, but we don't have the money, so we need to cut people. Not giving a space for people to grow, whatever it was. Yeah. So I knew that I wanted to take that away and be in a space where I can do the whole opposite. And I think sometimes uh, in Colombia, volunteer is not such a big thing. And for me, when I moved to Canada, it's like, oh my goodness, everybody volunteers and everybody works for free. And I think that's one of the things that is being really powerful for me, is like, what do I really care about, and how I can put my time in something that it will be not just powerful for me, but powerful for someone else. Um, how does volunteer or participate in communities have helped you to like write down those values, and realizing that that's something that you care?
Yeah. Oh man, volunteering is a tricky one. Or even finding and developing, any sort of community is a tricky one. I definitely struggle in the beginning. I think once we kind of opened up more online portals, that became just easier, right? The amount of people that I've met. in the last 2 years is amazing. And it's like, where were y'all like 6 years ago? It's
I
all
mean,
good.
that's why you're here, pretty
Yeah,
much. Yes.
it's all good, right? This is the present, so it's all good. But it's amazing how just online you can really open up those doors. To go back to the question of how that helps you develop those values. Yeah, I think what are things you're okay with? What are things that you're not okay with? What are some deal breakers? What are some things you're like, wow, that makes me wake up and feel extremely happy? Even moments of outcomes and things that happen, listen to your internal like voice, like if that made you feel something, whether good or bad. I like to listen to my gut a lot. It's usually a good indicator as to, wow, I should really listen to that more. I should be doing more of that, right? So whenever I have like an exciting call or I do stuff like this, like that makes my day. And of course I get dopamine out of it. So I do more of it. And the more I do, the more just like one is natural practice. Two, it helps me understand, do I still feel the same, right? If not, what has changed? A lot of self-reflect, like, what about this sucks, or what about this ain't working anymore? Let me change that. Is it that I need a break, right? It can be an indicator of burnout. Definitely there. Breaks are important. Be like, listen, I love doing all of this, but I need a break. I need some me time. And I come back, right? I come back and I do more of it. It can be more of a, this type of community ain't it. I want to hone in on a more niche community, right? Which I've definitely done. I've gone from like design to like, no, I wanna take care of my BIPOCs, my queers, because that became something really important for me in recent years. So it's okay to be like, at the core, the passion's the same, but it can't, and at the front it can look a little different, because as you kind of grow up and change, those things grow up and change with you.
And I mean, this is a kind of the core values of UX and TAME. Honestly, for me, it always was hard to find a space where just anyone could come and talk and share their story. Because at the end of the day, I feel like there is more of us that I don't know, like people with thousands of degrees or working in like super popular, famous companies or having PhD or whatever. And those usually are the people that get always into talks.
Hmm.
And then as like just like the everyday person don't have voices to talk. And I think just going back to the core of what who you are and what you love to do and start speaking up about that, then you realize that it's a lot of people that haven't had the chance to speak up and share their feelings. So I think just being yourself and really don't being afraid of doing it. It's just encourage others to be there and doing it. So that's what I love, these kind of things.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are kind of like, okay, no, maybe I know what I like, and I think I know my priorities and I think my values, but then we encounter to the world outside. uh, how do we put all this together and find a company that aligns with me and with what I want?
Yeah. I think that's an interesting one that we get all the time, right? It's like, who's gonna what's gonna work for me? I think ultimately, I don't think there's a right answer. I just think, who's gonna keep my needs met or exceed them and help me keep my values upheld. um you know when you enter a company, sometimes things happen, whether it's at a small level like your team, or at a bigger company scale, right? The second that maybe you're uncomfortable, that your values are just like, wow, I don't want to be related to this, that's a good indicator to get out. But when it comes to finding that space, I think it does come back to having some sort of priority list of, you know, what am I focused right now in my next step in my career, right? Is it getting exposed to new things, being building wealth, um, and coming back to it is like compare your priorities, compare your values to what that company's doing, and try to see where those overlap, kind of like a Venn diagram. See how they describe themselves, and are they walking the walk? I think that's the most important one, because there's definitely companies that will say we have all these things or we do these things, but there's it's very at face value, or they're literally just getting started. So you might be, in the cusp of something that may fizzle out. Been there, right? It's like, oh, we do all these things, and then when I went to those like ERGs, sometimes what they call them, the employee resource groups, those spaces were not what they said they were, right? So sometimes it is trying, um again, you feel comfortable, everything checks out, but ultimately, until you try it and give it a chance, I think that'll give you the most realistic perspective. Also, talking to people, if you can, that work there before you work there, also helps to kind of better understand how things are in that space.
I think that's a big one. Definitely, like taking the time to meet the people that maybe are working there right now and that have work, and asking questions. And I think you can tell a lot of people how they react about questions about their work, about their values too, and if you will feel okay with that. I mean, yes, I think it's a lot of questions to ask. Maybe that's my next question. I was looking something at LinkedIn today, and I saw this post about like when you are interviewing, the interviewees should have more time to ask questions, like because
Literally saw that post, like,
oh, did
and
you
then
watch
it's
the
before the
post? Yeah, could be something like that. That's what happened when you start following people in LinkedIn and you start liking comments. But yeah, it sounds so interesting. And I think for me, when I talk to a lot of people again in ADP list, um, and they have an interview coming up, it's like, okay, what questions are you going to ask, or what are you interested to know about them? And it's like this is a two ways conversation. At the end of the day, I want them to really tell me who they are. Like if you're dating someone, yes, you are not just going to choose, oh, I'm desperate, so I need to a partner, so let's just date. That's a lie. No one does that. Yeah, so we all ask questions and we go out and see what they like to drink, or how they ask the waiters for whatever. Like we all have this sense about how we like things and if they're fair or not fair, what do they care about or not. So I don't know why we don't take the same seriousness when we are interviewing for a job.
Yeah, it's rough. I always have work questions that I'm allotted to ask, right?
Yeah, like what do you think that you will ask, or what do you ask?
It's very situational, right? I do have like a running list of possible questions, and I do my own vetting of when I'm doing a screener or I'm doing my own research for that company. Like, do I have do I have an answer for this? And am I satisfied with that answer that I just looked up? Whether it was a blog post, or I talked to a recruiter, or I talked to somebody, am I satisfied with those answers? And if not, why am I not? One, what's missing? Why do I go back to, like, is this really important, or I'm just asking for the sake of asking? Um, and if not, I try to find out where in the process does it make sense to ask those questions, right? Because some questions make sense. Like a recruiter will be able to ask you like overall company question things that are happening, and a manager might be able to give you more insight as to your day to day, type of work you'll be doing. So kind of understanding where and who to ask those questions. Also, it's also important because you don't want to waste that chance, right? Like you don't want the I think part of it, not the worst thing that can happen, but kind of in the process, the thing you don't want to happen is like, oh, I don't know how to answer. I'm not the right person to answer that question. It's like, no. But you kind of learn those along the way. But I do have like a running list that I've kind of gathered along the way. As I interview, I kind of write those down. Or even posts that I find, right? It's like, oh, that's a good question. Yeah, and just have a running list, and it kind of changes too over time. It's like, is that important to me? Do I understand what that means? Okay, do I need to validate that? Probably not. I kind of understand it. Or can I get that through like some sort of other way? But again, it comes back to how satisfied, one, how important that is to you, how satisfied you are with the answer.
I think a lot of people will maybe, and I mean, I have done it many times until I realized that I shouldn't do it anymore. Is like these being nice. Like I shouldn't be asking this because that's not nice. Or,
Yes.
I mean, I'm afraid that they're going to answer something that I don't like, and my dream job or company is not anymore. So of course, these are scary questions. And again, like when you are dating someone and you ask about what do you think about X, and then they say something that you're like, I cannot believe that you really think this. Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what you ask these questions, because you don't want to be being sad about your dream company when you are in the company and realizing what I'm doing here. um so I think
Yes.
you can just go for it. Just ask the
Yeah.
question.
Worst thing that can happen, yeah, they answer something, they're like, ooh. And then you're like, how okay am I with that? Ooh. Like, where is that ooh coming from? And better to find out now than later. Than like
Mhm.
going through onboarding and all that. That's exhausting. That takes a lot of time. It sucks for you and and the employer, right? Better again, anything sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, again, like in any relationship, I don't want to break my heart. I don't
Mhm.
want to put time and effort in something that I don't believe I that I stand for. That's a big one. So yeah, ask the questions. I think just go for it. Okay. Now I got hired and now I'm in a dream job and dream company. How do I get cultivating this culture of like uh how to still see, like, I mean, we've been dating for a month, 2 months, everything still looks good, but then at the end of the road you can start seeing that everything starts coming up, or maybe it's still showing like great. Like how do you keep cultivating this culture of your values and how to show them to the world?
Yeah, I love to think of it about around the pyramid of needs, right? Just I think the biggest one are your basic needs being met, and is it a are you psychologically safe to do all these things? I would assume that you are, because you accepted the job, you feel fine. But I think that's always good to like even doing some self-reflection, because sometimes again we get into these deep dark places sometimes, like how are you feeling, right? Is it a personal thing, is it a job thing, is it somebody I don't like working with? But are my basic needs being met? And do I feel safe saying something? And for those who are not super familiar with like basic needs, and especially in a career space, is like, are your benefits, compensation, anything that has to do with like your day to day, like am I able to survive? And then it comes with more social needs, right? So like company culture, your teammates, diversity and inclusion, the mission and values of the company. And then it becomes a little bit towards the end, it becomes a little bit more selfish, because it's like career mobility, right? Career roadmap, personal development. And I think when those things are met, even at the top level, once those social needs and basic needs are met, you can start focusing on being that authentic self. And then this is where, if it's a safe space, again, we've established a safe space, you can challenge things, right? Either you can agree and continue to uphold those by being an exemplary person, even at a small scale, right? So for me, I love sharing resources. I'm a resource, like I save so many resources, and I watch a lot of YouTube, and I keep up with a lot of these things. And when I see a little bit of nugget, that I'm like, ooh, let me share that. Even on a small scale, I share it in the chat, but I'm still upholding that value of mine, like the career growth and development and learning, continuous learning is important to me. So it doesn't have to be these big, like performative things. It can be even small things. It can be, man, my coworker is struggling with Figma because they're learning, and I know Figma like the back of my hand. So I jump in. I'm like, hey, here's a couple of YouTubes, but happy to walk you through whatever you're struggling with, because I believe in collaboration. I believe in those things. Those are part of my values, right? So it comes back to, like, doesn't have to be big performative things. I'm not a big performative person either. So those can be done that way. You can get involved too, right? I sit on the sidelines a little bit, on the ERGs, just because I'm focused on other things in my career right now. So I don't want to, again, I'm very cautious of my time. But that doesn't mean that I can't, again, participate in small little nuggets of, like, I still really care about this, and I want to make sure that the company continues to uphold these things, and I want to be part of that. But I'm gonna do it on my time with whatever bandwidth I have. So you need to, again, I need to be personally okay doing those things, and kind of follow those and try new things, right? Like, oh, that didn't work out. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Let's try something else. And that's more on the internal side. External, that's the world. World's your oyster. You can do whatever you want, right? We talked about volunteering in spaces. We talked about building support systems. I think freelancing is another good one. I haven't done a whole lot of that, but I hear I've been exposed to. For me, freelancing was always like a weird one, but I've talked to amazing people who love freelancing, and they have amazing stories, and I love that, and that's another great way to kind of, again, volunteer or do work for those spaces that you really care about. But I think ultimately for me, it's about putting more good out in the world. I have always said that a large part of where I am is because of all the things that I've absorbed from everybody, and I want to make sure that I continue that on. So it's important to me to, however, the bandwidth that I have and whatever networks that I have available to me, finding that middle ground of, like, where do I feel safe doing these things? But however I do it, I want to make sure that I'm putting that good out in the world, because, again, that helped me. So I need to make sure that I'm also putting that out there. But again, personal values, right? Practice what you preach.
I love that, and I think this. I feel like it's such an easy one. Yeah, it's like if I'm all about community, and like you say, it's not that I'm going to put like a big event for 10,000 people to come. Maybe it's just booking a coffee chat with something at work that you haven't talked in a while and see how they're doing. And I mean, there's all these simple things that you could do that just take a second, and people will love it. I think people love these little details and say, "Oh my goodness, they're thinking about me," and then they're going to do the same and say, "Oh, let me book a coffee chat with someone else." Um, so yeah, so whatever your values are, try to show them at work, outside of work, with your family, with your loved ones, and I think the ball of love and these big values are going to keep growing. Um, why don't you? I think that's just show your love and your care about others. I think it's just simple. Okay, I think this is it. But to finish up, I know this is. What are your plans for 2023? Now that we are almost at the end of the year, what is happening?
Ooh, okay. Let's see. Well, I'm probably gonna continue teaching my class. I love my people. They've been amazing, and I love doing it. It was my first time teaching a class, so I'm excited how it's only gonna get better from here. We have so many plans. I'm gonna continue doing me. You know, I've been doing a lot of self journey in my personal end, so I'm I've been in Seattle for 10 months now, so I'm still exploring the city. I'm trying to explore all these new things about me that I just, connecting with the city, with myself, with nature, and I don't know, it's amazing. Career wise, upward mobility for sure. That is my focus because y'all, we need more leaders like us. And yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, I mean, Seattle, Vancouver, like I didn't know that you were this close. I think last time that we talked, I don't know why I didn't know all these things about you. But it's like for sure, maybe summertime. I haven't been in Seattle in a while. So like I put you in my calendar for summer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. And I think just to finish up, I love the part that you started saying, I'm working on a lot of self learning and who I am, I wanted to do. I think that's going to help you so much to identify these things that we were talking today of finding a job that aligns with your values. More that you know yourself, more that you know where to go, what kind of questions to ask, to start like really listening to your gut, to do your prioritization list. Finding what are your needs in the pyramid of needs.
Yeah.
I love it. I think thank you so much. And if everybody's having fun and had wanted to listen to more talks like this, we have two more this year. And my 2022 season is over. I cannot believe it. So if people is like, oh my goodness, I think I would love to talk in UX and 10, please give me a DM. I would love to have you. And Maggie, thank you so much. This was great. Have a great time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.